Warcraft 3 Reforged Developer Update. Here we go with the Tyrol link. This is happening. This is real. Hail Warcraft 3 Reforged players. It's been too long since we've shared an update on our team's progress after a challenging launch. We've been regrouping, listening to your feedback, prioritising the things we need to do for the game, and building a plan to deliver on our next steps. While we've been quiet these past few months, know that there is a dedicated and passionate team that's been hard at work on Warcraft 3 Reforged behind the scenes. As our team works towards a roadmap that we can share in the near future, we'd like to start communicating more frequently and meaningfully about our plans and what's coming next for the game. Let's kick that off right now, with the first in a series of articles diving into what the team is focused on. Ongoing updates, bug and desync fix patches. Since launch, we've delivered a series of patches in an ongoing effort to continue fixing bugs and making quality of life changes across Warcraft 3. These updates have come at a rate of at least once a month, and includes fixes and improvements to art, gameplay, systems, features across the game, including campaign, custom game, and versus mode. I mean, that one just made me think of Naga ears, but I'm trying not to be too cynical here. Some of our most impactful bugs since Legacy Warcraft 3 involve desyncs, which occur when two or more players' game clients get out of sync and force their game to end prematurely. Due to how disruptive these desyncs can be, a heavy emphasis will continue to be on finding and resolving the most common issues that are causing desyncs. In addition to actively approaching desync issues from different angles, we're also developing a tool that will better arm us against future desyncs. Balance updates. As with other Blizzard games, our team will also be releasing balance updates for Warcraft 3. Our goal is to preserve classic strategies where possible while promoting increased strategic variety. Warcraft 3 is a hero-focused RTS real-time strategy game, and we want to celebrate that by providing opportunities for players to open with different heroes, while retaining the unique playstyles inherent to each race and the asymmetry between races. So what we're going to do is we're going to nerf the Death Knight, so that you can play a different hero. Hooray! Each of our balance patches will aim to ensure competitive integrity at the professional level, while providing a variety of different strategies for new and returning players of all skill levels. Our first balance patch since launch will be coming to the public test realm for testing this week, and will feature a bevy of updates. Check out the patch notes soon for all the details, and don't forget to provide your feedback once you've had a chance to play the changes on the PTR. Upcoming features. In parallel to these ongoing bug fixing efforts and balance updates, we're also working to deliver to the features to the game, including, excuse me one moment, there we go, to bring that down just another notch, including improved matchmaking, ranked ladders, profiles, custom campaigns, and clans. While we've mentioned before that these features are in development, we wanted to start providing more details on the direction we're taking with each, share some additional insights, and give players an opportunity to provide feedback. Up first, let's talk about our ongoing improvements to Warcraft 3's matchmaking. Matchmaking Reforged. Matchmaking is the system we use to find and match allies and opponents of similar skill. To support this, player skill is tracked using a numerical representation called a player's matchmaking rating, or MMR for short. A higher MMR reflects a more skilled player, and matching players with others of comparable skill using their MMRs keeps games as fair and fun as possible. A player's MMR gets updated at the conclusion of each match, with the amount of points received being dependent on several factors that serve to determine their predicted win chance, and an internal value called variance. We use variance to represent how confident our system is that a player is rated at the right skill level. When starting out, variance is high because the system doesn't have enough information yet. Over time, as more games are played, this number will decrease. Higher variance means that there are larger swings in how MMR is adjusted after each match, while lower variance results in smaller MMR changes. Initially, our system will make large changes to MMR to get a player near a proper rating, and then refine over time with smaller changes as more games are played. Consistent performance over time will allow a player's MMR to move up or down as they win or lose games. I wonder what Happy's MMR would be then. Because it's based on essentially how well you're doing. So if you continue to do well, you might just keep getting like ridiculous amounts of points. Or is it that it's based on how well you're expected to do, so it's going to give you less points, even if you do beat your opponent? It's kind of unrewarding in that sense. In a departure from the legacy version of Warcraft 3, Reforged now has a per-race MMR in all modes except arranged teams, which allow for more competitive matchmaking, while freeing players to play their favourite races or learn new races, without fear of impacting their overall MMR. Also new, Reforged now features global matchmaking for all modes, which allows players to test their mettle against the best Warcraft 3 players around the world. You might want to change that one, unless you can somehow get the ping to, 50 or so. Actually under 100 instead of 200 to 400 for once. While this addition is an exciting feature, we are aware of community concerns surrounding latency with global matchmaking. In reaction to this feedback, the team has begun rolling out a series of server updates which have reduced the number of high latency games by over 60% since the week of May the 4th. We will continue working to further reduce the occurrence of these high latency games by implementing additional fixes in the coming weeks, so please continue to give us feedback on your experience. I wonder what their technology is like, because is it the case that they can just keep fine-tuning it to the point where players do have perfect low latency? Or is there essentially a cap where no matter what happens, if you're against an Asian player, you're going to have at least 200 ping? Because if that's the case, then just scrap the global matchmaking. Warcraft 3 has 3 primary matchmaking modes: 1v1, team games, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, and free-for-all. Free-for-all? Free-for-all? The goal for all modes is to match players in a way that provides the best games possible while doing so in a reasonable amount of time. To accomplish this, the system starts by looking for a perfect match and slowly loosens its requirements over time if it can't make that match. So it's going to get real sloppy after a minute or so. The parameters for finding matches and the way these restrictions are relaxed are different for each of the matchmaking modes. So let's dive into each of them. 1v1. Among the 3 matchmaking modes, 1v1 will have the most stringent matchmaking parameters, as this game mode is all about individual performance. Reforged to further enable players to find the best and most competitive 1 versus 1 matches. It's kind of funny how they try to get that word in there as a descriptive. As part of these changes, the matchmaker will now adjust search parameters, specifically for higher MMR players to find the most competitive matches, even in exchange for longer queue times. So what this means is that Grubby and Todd are going to be matched against each other 10 times in a row before they can match another player. That should be quite amusing. Regardless of MMR, the matchmaker will slowly loosen the search parameters as time goes on in order to find a match. The adjustment will take longer for higher MMR players in order to continue prioritizing finding the most competitive players or matches. We believe these changes will allow the most competitive 1v1 players to find the best matches that most closely mirror their skill. It might get a bit hoovery in the background, just to warn you, in case you get some weird sounds. Bear with me. Vroom. For team games, the system is slightly different, so this is 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, to account for the fact that the outcome of a team game is not solely tied to the performance of an individual. Team game players who watch MMRs closely will notice that it takes more games before their MMR settles into its proper range, and they'll see larger MMR adjustments per game, and for more games than in 1 versus 1. Since the outcome of the game is influenced by others on the team, the system takes longer to dial in on an individual player's skill. This will be the most interesting one, because there's some people in 4 versus 4 RT that have practically never played the game before, yet you've got someone like me who's played the game since it's come out. How long does it take for me to separate from those players? In recognition of this, arranged teams consisting of a full team of self-organized players are now tracked separately using the team's MMR and are unable to fight against random team players, because this would be bullshit. Oh, it actually doesn't say that. Rather than a player's individual rating. Playing games as an arranged team does not affect your individual MMR for that game mode or race, so you can switch races freely while in an arranged team and not worry about affecting your outside ratings. Since arranged teams are tracked separately, They will also have separate leaderboards once ranked play arrives to better gauge overall performance. Since arranged teams are tracked separately, so they're definitely done. How is this done again then? Arranged teams consist of a full team, blah blah blah. So if it's a full team, it uses the team's MMR rather than a player's individual. Playing games as an arranged team does not affect your individual MMR. So you have to have like all 4 players in a 4v4 or all 3 players in a 3v3, I guess. And so on. They're tracked separately, so they will have separate leaderboards. But they'll still affect random team players, right? If they're still able to get into matches with random team players, which is really the biggest issue. One of our goals is to provide as many options as possible to allow players to play alongside their friends, and this means minimizing restrictions for party size and MMR. In service of this, players of any MMR can party up together so that no matter your skill, you can always bring a friend along to play with. Players can also group up as a partial team, allowing friends to queue up together while the matchmaker finds other players to fill the remaining slots to complete the team. Does it find the equal amount of players, though? And I think not. If you had 2 people on the left team, does it wait until it's got a game where there's 2 people on the right team that are also grouped before falling into a 4 versus 4 random team game? Players assembling partial teams will be rated by their individual MMR rather than their team's MMR. So I'm going to be screwed by Overclock's MMR. For the first time, the system will allow random teams to be paired against arranged teams. So random teams to be paired against arranged teams. This is a departure from the precedent set in the legacy version of Warcraft 3, so we wanted to share our thoughts behind this change. Pairing arranged teams solely against other arranged teams often resulted in very long queue times. Well, boo-hoo. Especially for high-rated teams. These extended queue times often led to poor quality games since teams would be matched against any available opponent once enough time passed. They're not wrong. There were arranged teams with like leaderboard scores of like, 900 wins and like 50, 60 losses or something like astronomical. But then again, you could still get that with 1 versus 1. I don't think you should sacrifice the integrity of 4 versus 4 RT, which is one of the staple gameplay types or modes of Warcraft 3, just to keep a few buddies that want to play with each other in a ranged team happy. I think tough shit, to be quite frank with you. This will help make more closely matched games more often, and we'll be keeping an eye on things to ensure the right balance of match quality. So they're not really going to change their mind on this. I think this is bullshit. I think there's no way arranged teams should be able to match with random teams. It's as simple as that. It just should not be possible. If you can't find games, well, tough. There ain't games to be played then in that situation. Go play random team instead. I just don't think you should be putting that. It's like almost basically think of it this way, like it's the same equivalent of what they were trying to say with the 1 versus 1. They're trying to get an MMR set up so that the top players fight against the top players and the bottom players fight against the bottom players. But with this, if you look at it from this perspective, it's basically like saying a ranged team can match against a random team. So it's essentially the equivalent of like Grubby matching against Overclocked. It's not going to be a fair game. It's just not. No matter which way you try to swing it, it's just so Grubby can play, for example. I've not got anything against Grubby. It sounds like I'm really spiteful there. No, it's just using him as an example here. Imagine Grubby is the arranged team. He's like, top of the top. He's brilliant. And Overclocked, he's your average player, so to speak. So, you're just your casual gamer. He pops into 4 versus 4 RT. He knows the rough ideas of the game works, but he doesn't know the depths of how far you can go with every nuance, because he hasn't had the experience or the time to put it in. So how are you going to have a fair game? You're not. It's as simple as that. It's just as simple as that. You're just not going to have a fair game of a ranged team versus random team. There's no way you can swing it. I don't care what you do with the MMR. You're just never going to have a fair game. A ranged team is always going to have an astronomical advantage. And Grubby would always have an astronomical advantage over Overclocked if it was like 1 versus 1. So it's like, no. Just keep a ranged team away from random team. Simple as that. Okay. Free for all. Free for all has historically had the most unforgiving matchmaking system, as there could only be one winner and 3 losing players. This system felt inaccurate given that the losing players are issued similar penalties despite some surviving longer than others during a match. Victories also resulted in single player gaining a lot of MMR, but all opponents' MMRs decreasing. This tended to cause a disparity in MMR ratings, which made it more difficult to match players up and has resulted in increased queue times for everyone. With these challenges in mind, we have completely redesigned the way MMR is calculated for free-for-all games. Instead of having one winner and 3 losing players, free-for-all games have shifted to a placement system of first through 4 places. At the conclusion of a game, multiple calculations are run to determine how each player's MMR will change based on both placement and the MMR of the other players in the game. It results in a more nuanced change to each player's free-for-all MMR, which should keep players of similar skills closer to one another in MMR. These updates help inform more accurate adjustments in MMRs and cut down on player queue times by keeping players grouped better with competitors of equal or similar skill. Moving to a placement system can raise concerns of potentially incentivizing players to prolong their play with unsportsmanlike tactics such as hiding buildings as an attempt to stay in the match longer. These problems have been inherent in free-for-all since its inception and are challenging to directly address. Overall, we believe that by tying free-for-all MMR changes to a placement system, we are actively encouraging players to finish off weaker ones, as each opponent defeated directly translates into higher MMR gains or reduced losses. So yeah, you're just going to scout at the start of the game, find the weakest player and just beeline for them. So even if you lose, you'll still get some MMR for it. As with all of our other changes, we'll continue to test and monitor these new systems to ensure that they work as intended and achieve our goals. To be continued. We're excited to continue rolling out these matchmaking improvements and moving forward. Players can expect ongoing communications from us at regular intervals as we release patches. As part of those communications, we'll have a series of feature deep dives and development updates like this one, as well as lighter looks at other aspects of the game and community. Our next feature deep dive will be focused on our upcoming ranked ladder system, so keep an eye out for details on our plans in the coming weeks. We plan to provide a roadmap for our future releases as our work progresses, but in the meantime, please continue sharing your feedback and know that our team is working hard to deliver features, bug fixes, improvements and balance updates as we strive to make Warcraft 3 Reforged better with each release. Zugzug, the Warcraft 3 team. Yep, there you go. That was quite the article, quite the read. Certainly a lot there. What I've taken from it is essentially an improvement to MMR to match people to a more accurate degree than ever done before in the game. However, a ranged team versus random team is complete BS. That needs to be changed. Balance updates is curious as to what they're going to bring with that, and fixes to just bugs and desyncs is a standard because, well, you can't really leave that, can you? So that's the general gist. Good job there, games team. Thanks for the information. At least we got some. I feel pretty bad for them because, like, I do think they are working hard, but this game was nowhere near ready for release. I mean, we've been saying that, all of us that have been following the Warcraft 3 scene for a long time. But damn, like, Activision or Blizzard, the headquarters, whoever's in charge, basically, screwed them hard by forcing them to bring Warcraft 3 out when they did. There's no way. They should have announced it as early as they did, because this, it sounds like a lot of work. And we're almost halfway through 2020. So by the time all of this is done in an ideal world, maybe they're lucky that it's done by the end of this year. So you're looking at close to maybe the start of 2021. And Warcraft 3 released at the start of 2020. So if they just released Warcraft 3 at the start of 21, they could have avoided so much hassle, but those monies have to be made somehow. So that's a shame. But there you go. Those are my initial thoughts on the Warcraft 3 Reforged Developer Update. First time reading it. Quite the read indeed. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thumbs up, subscribe, twitch.tv/WTii. Go cuddle a puppy, and I'll see you later.